Alright guys, name is Tyler aka Nanogenix, and today we are talking about the highly anticipated Super Dragon Ball Heroes World Mission finally releasing outside of Japan on the Switch and PC. And today we're actually going to be discussing, is it worth your time and hard-earned money? Let's get into it. Now to go ahead and just start this whole thing off, I was provided a free copy of this game a couple weeks ago via Bandai. They sent it out to me for me to get some hands-on with it. I actually participated in a live stream for this game for Bandai, on top of the fact that I also just wanted to be able to do this sort of review video and talk about whether it is actually worth it or not to pick this game up. So again, a lot of my references here will be from the Nintendo Switch version, but for the most part, and except for when we talk about the sort of touch abilities and start getting into sort of the gameplay part of this video, a lot of this you can take over to the Steam PC version as well. But just letting you guys know, this was provided to me for completely free, so hashtag free product for today's review. So now that we have that out of the way, let's hop into our first discussion topic of the video, and that is simply, what is Super Dragon Ball Heroes? Now, you've probably heard a lot about this, maybe even seen some stuff from it, but didn't fully realize what exactly was going on. And this is a card-based arcade game from Japan, and this is the first time it's ever been widely released outside of Japan. This is the first time the US has ever gotten a version where it's actually in English and everything else, and many other countries and regions around the world. This is sort of our first true taste of Super Dragon Ball Heroes, unless of course you imported it, and even then, if you did, it'd have been all in Japanese and everything else. So if you heard me say card game and you're about to click off, hang on with me for just one sec, because it's not just a card game, it's also an arcade game, which implements a lot of different gameplay mechanics, which I'll hop into in just a moment and talk about, but it does keep it a little bit more fresh. So if you're thinking it's just a sort of plain old card game, it does do a lot of things differently here. And one more thing to note is that it is an arcade game that has been ported to the PC and Switch, so that does affect its visual fidelity, which we're going to hop into in just a moment. I said visual fidelity, I could have just said graphics. I don't know why I'm trying to be extra right now, but we're going to talk about the graphics in just a moment. But this is a nearly decade-old arcade game. It started in 2010, has been ported over. In 2016, it did sort of get an update, which it went from being Dragon Ball Heroes to Super Dragon Ball Heroes, but it's still, again, at its roots, it is an arcade game that has been ported over to the PC and to the Switch. And they are using the Budokai series models, and it's really pretty noticeable for a lot of people. I know once I hopped in, once I got used to it, it didn't really bother anymore, but I do know some people are very much so on the side of they want their games to look a certain way. And this does look like a PS2 era game, because guess what? It's using PS2 era graphics because it is an arcade game and is a port from an arcade. But I think it also stays true to form by keeping these graphics as well. With all that said, that's sort of the baseline of what Super Dragon Ball Heroes is. Now, there's a lot more to it that we'll get into a little bit, but I do want to focus on a more high level here. What all does this game offer? The gameplay mechanics, again, the graphics a little bit, and everything else, some pros, some cons. And at the end of the video, I'll let you guys know whether I think it's worth it. And then hopefully, from everything I've compiled in this video, you also have a better idea of whether you feel like this game is worth it or not to you as well. So with that, let's hop into what all does this game offer in terms of features, different modes, and everything else. So right now, we are in the hub world for Super Dragon Ball Heroes. And one thing I've not mentioned yet about this game is that it is aware that it is a game within a game, essentially. So my main character here, which of course I named him Nano, but in the actual Super Dragon Ball Heroes series, this essentially is Beat, and he is aware that he is playing a card game. So he is aware that if I go back to the stadium and I place down a Goku card, a Goku is getting summoned, similar to, I guess you could say, maybe something like Yu-Gi-Oh! But enough of that. This is the hub world, so I could run over here to the Gacha and actually summon new cards. I could go back to the stadium and do fights or whatever it might be. But the cool thing they did with this, unlike some of the other Bandai games lately where they have focused on these hub worlds where you have to run to do a versus match, run to do story, etc., I can just press plus right now, pull up my hero switch, and immediately have access to all the different modes and things you can do within this game. So here's the story mode. I do want to take a little bit of a look at it here in a moment as we move through and talk about all the different modes afterwards, but I will definitely say right now while we're on it, the story mode is, in my honest opinion, a little bit lackluster. time manipulation style mode where there's anomalies happening throughout time. Things like Vegeta can go SSJ3 in the Saiyan Saga, and you basically have to go through time and fix that. I won't say too much more about the story because I don't want to spoil it in case you want to hop in, but I will say it's a very surface level story in my honest opinion. But the fights that actually take place within the story mode are a ton of fun. There's the arcade mode, that's sort of the true to form arcade sort of experience that you would get if you went to Japan and played the actual arcade game for Super Dragon Ball Heroes. There's the creation mode, which I'll hop into for just a moment here later in the video, where you can actually create your own cards, your own custom cards, their own custom abilities, everything else like that, as well as you can create missions for others to play. So when it comes to the creation mode, the possibilities do become a little bit endless. Network battle, you can do ad hoc fights. So if you're just in a room somewhere with not even Wi-Fi, but 2 switches, you can actually do ad hoc battles with 2 switches, which is really cool, as well as of course online multiplayer. The Hero Lab is just basically you go to the Hero Lab and it's another part of the hub world. The Hero Stadium, kind of the same thing. The shop is where you can go to do more summons and everything else. We'll talk about that in just a moment. Then hop back out to the title screen, the deck creation, because you can create many different decks. There's 50 different slots for creating different decks just to have ready to go depending on what you want to do, because again, this is a card game at its core, and so there is definitely a sort of part of creating synergy with your deck and the cards that you're using. It's not just throwing, you can throw your favorite characters into a deck and it will probably work to some extent, but there is definitely something to it to build out a deck with proper synergy. And then you do have allies that you use throughout the story mode, and you level up your sort of bond with them, and it adds just kind of another level of leveling something up besides just your own character, because there is leveling within this game. So let's take a look quickly at the story mode within this game. So what we're looking at now is actually the map inside the story mode, and you can see in the top right hand corner that I've done 1 out of 1 stories, but only 4 out of 5 battles. So this is a portion of it that adds some replayability to each of the missions. Is that if we go back here, this is a fight against Tien that I've completed and beat and everything else and got a score on, and it's all fine and dandy, but there's actually another thing to it called an ultra completion, which if I go up here, you'll notice to get past this barrier to get to the final sort of extra battle. Again, I've completed this chapter, it shows it's complete, but there's a bonus battle that if I go back and fight Tien and do the ultra completion, which is beating the battle under certain conditions, I will then be able to unlock this path and do the final battle within this. So it adds a nice sort of extra layer of replayability within the actual story mode. And then you may also notice that even though we're not in the hub world anymore, I can press plus, bring up the hero switch, and can immediately access the other options here. Again, I think they were really good with the UI in this game, allowing you to switch between the modes fairly quickly. Now then, we're over in the arcade mode for Heroes, and you'll notice there are a lot of these sagas. Again, this is very similar to what you would be taking on if you played the actual arcade game. And just like in the story mode with that Tien fight that we were talking about, these also offer these sort of ultra completion conditions that you'll want to do to fully finish out the mission. So you may beat it and you might even get like a high score on it, but you still have this sort of option to come back and potentially try and do it differently. So for this first one here is ultra completion, finish each prep phase with power level 7,000 or higher and win the battle. That is just one condition that you have to do. Then you come to the next one, win the battle without using the support area. So it adds an extra layer of replayability. If you've already beat it once, you can come back and try and beat it again and completing out these conditions. And of course, it gets harder as you go along. So you notice the difficulty shows easy, then normal, and then hard, and then so forth as you beat these, and it unlocks more paths for you to continue on throughout that saga. Next up is one of the most important parts to this game, and that is its shop. As you can see, we get new items for the creation utility. We can get new items for actually before you hop into battles in story mode and arcade, get new accessories which you can use on cards, and then the indefinitely most important part, the gacha shop. Now, there are over 1,100 cards in this game. I believe there's 1,161 to be exact as of filming this video. There could potentially be DLC in the future, but as of right now, 1,161 cards included in the base portion of this game. I believe that equals out to about 350 different actual characters too, but you acquire those by going into the gacha shop and spending your gacha tokens that you get from completing missions in the arcade and story mode. So no, there are no microtransactions as of filming this. You just play the game, you get more tickets, and you come in here and you can summon 4 new cards. So it's all built into the game. You buy the game and it's all right there. You just acquire them from just playing the game. Then you can see there's normal gacha tickets and there's rare gacha tickets. The rare, all it does is basically you're guaranteed an SR or higher. Then once you actually hop in here, there's 8 different sets from the SDBH sets, and then there's also the sets 1 and 2, and then there's also a promo set as well, which you can only use the standard cards on that. So this one in particular today, I'm going to go for set 4 on this rare because I'm really wanting the dark king. Come on. Oh, or I can get this Bardock too. Cool. Now I'm going to use a multi-summon on set 4 as well. Now, a huge shout out to Goresh for this. He actually made a tier list for us. So the main thing you're going to go for here, which as you can see on your screen, this is his tier list he created and sent over, is going to be UM2. Now, the reason why he selected that is because it has the most possibilities for you to get new cards to help you out within the arcade and story mode of this game. A lot of very, very top tier cards available in that set. But then there are great cards from the other sets as well, which is why I'm hopping into 4 right now and doing a 10 Gacha ticket multi-summon on it, and hopefully going to get not going to get the Dark King, but it is what it is. But that is the shop utility. That is acquiring new cards. It is all built in, all just from playing the game. There's no microtransactions to acquire new cards, which in my opinion is a very, very nice thing. Then you have the card creation portion of the game, and it can get just absolutely insane. The level of customization they have added here is crazy. So we're gonna equip that background, then we can come over here, we can equip an effect, and yes, you can move it, so I can put it into like Vegeta's hand up here. And yes, I also have it controlled to where that Gohan and that Vegeta are in the background. They're in the background. I could totally remove them if I wanted to. You can layer it. I could put Goku a little bit in front of Vegeta if I wanted to. I'm controlling the frame, all of that. So we'll confirm the appearance for now. You can set the attack style, the stats, the super attack, their abilities. It gets crazy, everything you can do with the card creation. Again, I could spend probably hours talking about this today, but it's just to show you that the customization you're able to do is insane. And yes, that Xeno Vegeta, I could give him, you know, something even as basic as Kamehameha or something like Spirit Bomb, and in game his model will be Xeno Vegeta doing the Spirit Bomb. That is how awesome that this can all be. And lastly, the gameplay. Now again, at its core, this is a card-based game, but as I said at the beginning, it's an arcade game still, so it still does get you involved, whether you're moving the cards back and forth to make your character transform, because yes, there are in-game transformations, there's in-game fusions, there is all kinds of abilities that you can do in-game. And this is where my one sort of con comes in, is while you can play the game docked on Switch, you obviously can pick the game up on PC. I think the best experience that I have so far had with this game is in handheld mode with the actual touchscreen on the Switch, because there are so many different things that these different units can do, whether it be all your characters coming together to form a Spirit Bomb and you're charging it up, you're charging up a Kamehameha, you're charging up a Blast, you're doing slash effects with Trunks, whatever it might be. The experience, in my honest opinion, is better via the Switch's touchscreen. And that's not to say that when you're docked on the Switch using a controller or you're playing it on the PC, it's not still fun, but I just think the immersion is so much more when you're actually using the touchscreen, since that is how it is played at an actual arcade. But I do think, and I hope that what you've seen here does present you and show you that yes, there is a little bit more to the gameplay than just playing a typical card game. It's definitely more action oriented, whether you're charging up a Kamehameha, etc., etc. So for the final bit here, and that is this game worth it or not? Now, if you had just popped into this game with no previous knowledge, of course, maybe not even watching this video, and you thought this was going to be even close to an arena fighter like the Xenoverse or Tenkaichi series, or maybe even a 2D fighter like Fighters, you might be a little disappointed. But if you go into this expecting maybe something new, maybe you've never tried a card game before, or you do enjoy card games, I mean, you're hopping into a game that has like the largest roster you could ever think of Dragon Ball characters, a ton of different super attacks, and the fact that it is a card game with an arcade spin, but it's a card game that has a lot of depth to it, a lot of different sort of synergy you can build out with the decks, a lot of different cards you can combine together, which is basically just another way of saying synergy. But you guys get what I'm saying. There is a lot of replayability here just from building out different decks, not including the pretty lengthy story mode, the arcade mode, the multiplayer, the incredible creation toolkit. And another thing too that I keep coming back to, because this has been my experience with it, which is of course the best way I can give you guys it, is it worth it or not? I've had this for about 2 weeks now, and whether I have time to sit down and play it for 3, 4, 5 hours straight, or just even have 10 or 20 minutes to play it, it's been a fun experience. It's something that I truly can sit here and play for 4 hours nonstop and just be like trying to get more cards, trying to get through the story, whatever it might be, learning the mechanics a little bit better. as well as just even sitting down for the 10-20 minutes, I feel like I actually played something, of value, right? Like I felt like I spent my 10 or 20 minutes good. And the thing about it is you can hop in and hop out and still legitimately feel like you accomplished something, which is definitely, I feel like it says something, right? When you can play a game for 10 or 20 or even 4 hours and you still feel like you got something out of it, right? So I truly believe that this game is absolutely worth it. Again, though, if it is something where you were running a fighting game or whatever it might be, then this is not going to be that. There is still a lot of things that add to it, that add to the gameplay, that take it out of just placing cards out and them kind of just doing their own effects. Like, it still brings you back in and has you do things that keeps you involved and keeps you immersed. But again, I think that a lot of that comes down to this playing this on this touchscreen, which has been 95% of the way I've experienced this game, has definitely made me enjoy it a little bit more that way than say if I were doing it with a controller. Some of the ways I was capturing some of this gameplay was obviously in docked mode. So again, I truly believe, yes, it's worth it. It's the first time we've ever had a Heroes game over here in the West, and so it's absolutely a fun time to hop in. And the other thing too, last but not least, is that you buy this game for the $60 price point and all the cards are available to you. There's no microtransactions. There's not like, well, here's 300 of the cards and the other 900 are, locked behind microtransactions. You just have to play the game and you unlock the cards. And I feel like that is absolutely incredible. So I think absolutely, if you're open to a card game, if you've never been, you've never been a part of one before, or, you love card games, dude, hop on this game. Absolutely, I do not think you will be disappointed at all. But with that said, that has been today's video. If you guys enjoyed it, you can slap a like button. If you're new to the channel, you might consider subscribing, joining #NanoFam today. Guys, have a great day. Keep on keeping on Nanogenix off, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye, guys.